Hello, friends. This is Richard Ruling here to share with you on a key topic that has been raised by Conrad Vine and Pastor Mark Finley, who is speaking about the SDA church, the apostasy, and etc. Um, he has a 16-minute video on YouTube that I'm addressing with his four topics that he wants in this 16 minutes is an understanding of how God will purify his church at end time. That's number one. An understanding of God's view of church organization. Number two. I'm going to be looking at this not from his point of view or mine, but actually from the prophet's point of view. Prophets were called seers, and I believe Ellen White saw what is we should be understanding. Okay, and I've got the quotes on it. And an understanding of the difference between apostasy in the church and the church in apostasy. He thinks that the church is not in apostasy. He thinks there's apostasy in the church. I think there's apostasy both places, in the church and the church in apostasy. And I'm going to give you the quote for it from Ellen White. And an understanding of God's plan for finishing the work. And I believe I see that as well. Thank you, Ellen White. So we need a good look at history. History is his story, the story of God, and how he's been treated or mistreated in the person of his saints. And when Stephen was being stoned, he asked, "Which of the prophets did your prophets not persecute? I mean, did your fathers not persecute?" The fact was that all the prophets were persecuted, and so was Ellen White. When brethren, church leaders did not accept the 1888 message, but Ellen White went with Jones and Wagner to camp meetings, the brethren wanted to break it up. And so they asked Ellen White to go to Australia to start a college. Well, really, they were just trying to break it up, her influence. She searched her heart and was willing, like Joseph, to see the good in something that looked bad. And she accepted their opinion. She started a college, Avondale College, while in Australia. But she also wrote some of her best books there and returned about 10 years later, 1901, to appeal for church reorganization. And they voted what she said. And she was so happy and pleased, and the church quotes, so let's quote now, but they did not carry it out. In 1903, they voted a more hierarchical system like the Catholic Church has. The Catholic Church has 5 levels. It has priests, bishops, archbishops, cardinals, and pope. And we have pastors, presidents of conferences, presidents of unions, presidents of divisions, and a general conference pope that travels the world like the papal pope does, telling people what to do. Ellen White's view was that people in South America, presidents of different unions could get together and discuss what was working, what wasn't working, and they didn't need the 5 levels. Her response to that vote in 1903, and I can give you the quote where she said it, is Volume 8, Testimonies for the Church, page 250. Easy to remember because if you multiply 8 times 250, you get 2,000. Okay, and we're there. A few years past. 24 years past, really. But the point is, she said, "How has the faithful city become a harlot? My Father's house is made a house of merchandise, a place whence the divine presence and glory have departed." Past tense. It's gone. Okay, that was her statement in 1903 when they voted the 5 levels. And a year or so later, they went to incorporate it. She said, "We cannot enter into any new organization, for that would be apostasy from the truth." Okay. Well, they did it. And I now have a quote. I went to about 8 camp meetings with the School of Health team when I was joining the School of Health. I taught there for 4 years and went to camp meetings as a cardiologist to help people's read their treadmill stress test, what their heart condition was in, and so on. And while at the camp meeting, I picked up this book, and I'm sorry that I don't have the, hold on, I do have the cover. It's Special Testimonies for the Church, Series B, number 7, okay? And this is in 1905. She said, "One thing it is certain is soon to be realized. The great apostasy, which is developing and increasing and waxing stronger, and will continue to do so until the Lord shall descend from heaven with a shout." Now get that, the apostasy that is developing and increasing will continue till the Lord comes with a shout. Okay, I'm sorry, but Mark Finley is not familiar with this statement because this special testimonies is not in the ABC. Why? In the back of my book, it has B.T. Anderson in Louisa, Virginia, and I by the way bought this in a camp meetings in 1973. About 15 years later, around 1988, I was reading my book that I hadn't read until then, but opportunities came, and I was astonished at it and wondered why my book had his name in the back. I called him up on the phone. He explained that he had been custodian at the General Conference, and that he was called up one day and they said, "We have some extra books we don't need. We'd just like you to stoke up the furnace. We'll be down." They came down to the basement of the General Conference where the furnace was, and tossed these special testimonies into the fire. And when they walked out, he choked out the fire and decided he would print them under his own name, which he did. Okay, and Ellen White wisely predicted this, and you can read it in her statement in four Bible commentary, which is the fourth volume that contains Jeremiah in it. Her comments on Jeremiah 36 are that this chapter 36, this chapter is a history of events that will be repeated. Let all who desire to receive warning read carefully. So she's trying to warn us that the church is in apostasy. Why? Because in that chapter, Jeremiah's scroll given to the king didn't like it. He cut it up and threw it in the fire. And that's what they did with her book. Okay, so guess what? The church really is in apostasy. I mean, leadership. The church may also have apostasy in it, here and there, but the leadership will be in apostasy. They incorporated those things, and today that's part of the problem with the church going. Once you're in you incorporate, you can now get tax deductions for donations. They want the tithe paid. People pay their tithe by the hundreds and thousands. Actually, millions are paid in tithe to the church. And so don't touch that, but it's a result of 501c3, tax exemption. And so people can get a tax break. But the government is pushing these people towards acceptance of the gay agenda, abomination according to the Bible, etc. But the church is mute, not saying much. This is apostasy. So that's it in a nutshell. And I'm here to share with you the fact that we need clear communication in the church of what's happening. To shut it down and say, Conrad, you're not welcome in the churches of Michigan is a sad truth. We need to be like the Bereans, with readiness of mind, receive the word and search and see if it's so. If we don't search and see if things are so, we're not going to make it anyway. But the church is clear that Conrad Vine, who is no longer welcome in the church, is in good company with Christ, who's also outside knocking at the door. That's the Laodicean church, okay? In Revelation 3, verse 20, I stand at the door and knock, and he urged them to repent. Does anybody know how that church ended? Historically, it ended in an earthquake. And I believe that Ellen White saw the earthquake that will end our church, recorded in volume 9 of the testimony, page 92 to 95, because Ellen White did not want drugs taught in her medical school. It was her school, to be her school, because she wanted the school for natural remedies to train missionaries. And brethren thought they could do more good if they got AMA accreditation, and so they had to add a class of pharmacology. And she said, nope, we're not supposed to be tied so much as by a thread to the educational policies of the world. Sadly, the brethren prevailed, hijacked her school, and now today, prescription drugs are the #1 cause of death in the United States. I have done the research myself. I was board certified in internal medicine, And I struggled as a young doctor. I was actually in medical school a leader of the medical evangelism group that studied God's plan for Loma Linda. And it did not include drugs, okay? She wanted the natural remedies, and she said that drugs change the form and location. I struggled to understand that until it came out in the JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association, in April 15, 1998. That's tax day. That 106,000 deaths in hospitals represented the fourth to sixth leading cause of death at that time in 1998. But 2 years later, the Western Journal of Medicine, the first one was JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association, reported that. Then came Western Journal of Medicine in June of 2000, saying that 199,000 deaths outside the hospital, those were outpatients, represented what was happening in that study. You put them together, outside the hospital, inside the hospital together, is 305. Medical care is number 3 cause of death after heart disease and cancer. One more study reported in 2007. It was a 7-year study from 1998 to 2005, when death rates increased 2.7-fold. Multiply 305,000 by 2.7, and it's 824,000 deaths per year. And medical care is number 1, but the CDC is lying to us and has never reported drugs as a leading cause of death, or of they accept that. So sad situation, but Bible is clear. It says in Revelation 18 verse 23, pharmakia deceives all nations. It's badly translated as sorcery deceives all nations. Well, why would you translate the word pharmakia as sorcery? They should have said pharmacy deceives all nations. So basically, I believe we're going to get it when judgment comes. Ellen White saw the earthquake at Loma Linda. She saw buildings, great and small, falling to the ground. Many lives were blotted out. It seemed that judgment day had come. The Bible says judgment begins at the house of God. And my point is that it will be, if she said it seemed that judgment day had come, that's first angel's message, and we should be proclaiming it. Proclaiming it means before it happens. We should say, heads up, get out of Loma Linda. Get out away from the people there are cooperating with a drug plan. I mean, that's how they make their money in the big hospital that is sky high, and she never had in mind huge hospitals like that. I think I've been there, talked to pastors and so on. They don't see it somehow. I don't know. Pray for them, but I think bad trouble is coming, and when it does, the answer will be the time of God's judgment here, and Babylon has fallen. Why? Because she already said, how has the faithful city become a harlot? Okay, we're part of the harlotry if our church mission is focused on medical missionary work with drugs, yes, etc. That's not how God's plan was. So heavy heart, difficulty to understand it all, but that's God's view of church organization, by the way. Faithful city became a harlot, and there is apostasy in the church, and the church is in apostasy until the Lord comes from heaven with a shout. And I believe that God has a different plan for us than we're understanding. The earthquake at that time is also the knock for the wedding. In Luke 12, verse 36, be ready when I come from the wedding and knock, that you open immediately. The only other place where Christ knocks is in Revelation 3:20 for the church, and the remnant in Matthew 22, verse 6 and 7, the remnant persecute or give trouble to the messengers on the wedding until the Lord sends his armies and burns up their city. And I think Loma Linda is our city, but the remnant are going to get their city burned. Okay, and we're not. I believe we're a half year away from that. It'll be in the springtime, as the days of Noah. No man knows the day or hour, by the way, but as the days of Noah. And in the days of Noah, the flood came with Passover timing, but second spring month. It was a 9/11 provision. That should get our attention. 9/11. Everybody knows 9/11 is important. And in Numbers 9, verse 10 and 11, is a provision for a late Passover. If an Israelite took a long journey, couldn't get back in time for Passover, he was to keep it the second month, a month later. And I'm confident, actually, that it was not just for the days of Noah. The next parable begins, then shall two be in the field, and then means same time, or as a direct consequence of the flood, etc. And I don't believe it will be a flood of water that's coming, but a flood of people coming into this country. The book of Isaiah has two references to the overflowing scourge, and I believe our country will be overrun with a scourge of people who want to take our stuff after the earthquake in the cities, the shops and stores and things like that. They access themselves. So maybe as in the days of Noah, there will be a flood of people. I don't know personally, but I do know that next year, this is also amazing, but dark day. We know from Ellen White, and you can Google it, by the way, Google the dark day, and it will tell you that May 19, 1780 was a dark day in New England and a few states in the Northeast. Ellen White explains that it was unexplainably dark, and they took it as a sign of Christ's coming. But it was repeated 200 years later when Mount St. Helens erupted and put ash into the sky, and overnight the wind carried that ash to darken 3 states in the Northwest, just like the original dark day was Northeast. This is Northwest on May 19 again. Okay, now I took geometry, and 2 points made a line. And in this case, God is marking not his calendar, but the papal calendar. May 19 is the Gregorian calendar's date, but God is marking that also, as it will. In this case, it happens to be the last day of Passover, time of judgment, in this coming year, 2025. And so I believe time of Passover, last day, May 19, going to be huge. And I believe we will be seeing Jerusalem compassed with armies before that. Like Titus came to Jerusalem, he surrounded Jerusalem on Passover. I believe they're going to take the city, as it says in Zechariah 14. It says, the day of the Lord comes, which, by the way, is a time of judgment. Just like night of the Lord was in Egypt. God said, I will execute judgment. This is night of the Lord. But day of the Lord is the end time expression, as day follows night. 25 times reference to day of the Lord, but no second coming in the book of Joel, where there's 5 references to day of the Lord, but no second coming. It's not when he comes in the sky, but God came invisibly to Egypt and executed judgment. And 1 Thessalonians 5 is the same idea. The day of the Lord comes as a thief in the night. Nobody's going to see Christ when he comes, but I believe he's going to execute judgment. And when they're saying peace and safety, sudden destruction comes. And I believe it will be second Passover in the month of May. May 19, okay? So it's not rocket science. Study it out. The Bible supports it. And no man knows the day or hour, but as the days of Noah. All of those parables there are supportive. Even the Goodman, by the way. The Goodman, if he'd have known, would have watched, not suffered his house to be broken. King James has only one reference to Goodman in the Old Testament. It's a harlot talking to some simple guy. She says, oh, the Goodman's gone on a long journey. He's taken a bag of money. He won't be back until the Yom Casey, or full moon. Passover comes on a full moon, but long journey is a specific provision for second Passover, when you can't get back in time. So there it is. And I just say, if God won't do anything without revealing, it's all revealed. He's not hiding it. It's just that it says it's the glory of God to conceal a thing. It's the honor of kings to search it out. Be a king. Search it out. The Bible supports what I'm saying. And we're going to be in big trouble between now and then as we get ready for polarizing the church. And some going to be ready. And I believe we should watch on the eve of Passover like Christ had the Lord's Supper. In fact, this is, we think, we can't time set. Well, God has set times. They're called moed, appointed times, for those feast days. And that's when Christ had the fellowship with his disciples and had the Lord's Supper. Okay? And Ellen White's statement is, as he, Christ, ate the Passover with his disciples, he instituted in its place. The service was to be the memorial of his great sacrifice. If we did it in its place, we would do it on the eve of Passover, like he did, okay? And then we would be ready if we watch and pray. Well, his disciples went to sleep and they ran. But if we can watch and pray, I've learned how to do it, by the way. I'm no better than the disciples, but I learned that in Egypt, the Israelites stayed awake by eating the lamb. And eating is stimulating. It keeps you awake. And so we can eat the lamb spiritually, in a sense, by reading the closing chapters of Christ's life and praying to be like him and having his spirit. So read a chapter, Last Supper, read a chapter, Let Not Your Heart Be Troubled, read a chapter, Gethsemane, see what he sweat blood for us for. And if it happens, you're ready spiritually. And if it doesn't happen, you just had a spiritual exercise and plan again for the next year, okay? Because I'm confident it's going to be that way, and I believe it'll be next year because Christ said, study the book of Daniel, and in the book of Daniel, the ram and goat conflict was the vision at the time of the end. Not 2,300 evening mornings, that was Moreh. But in verse 17, Daniel 8:17, the kazon is the vision at the time of the end of ram and goat. And we might wonder what makes the goat angry to fight the ram. But it's Zechariah 14, when nations gather against Jerusalem and they take it, and the houses are rifled, the women ravished, and half the city goes into captivity. I believe that the military is going to say to Trump, let's get him. And I believe that he is the great horn. Horns were cut off, by the way, to make trumpets. And so he is the trumpet, the great horn, that makes the goat great in Daniel 8:8. And I could be wrong, but play with it. If God doesn't do anything without revealing, maybe he's revealing it in a way you never thought of. And by the way, on that topic, in Exodus 29, verse 20, high priests were anointed by putting blood on their ear, the right ear, okay? And Trump was blessed by God with an anointing. Spared his life, actually. I'm not crazy about Trump. He doesn't seem like a very good Christian. He's proud. He's abusive in his language and rude and so on. But God could use a heathen king like Nebuchadnezzar. He could also use Trump. Okay, and I'm seeing that Trump has a mission. He's engraved on a coin in Israel as Cyrus II. Well, he hasn't had a chance to do what Cyrus I did yet, but I believe he will. So hang tight and visit my website. 3 words everybody wants: health, happiness, and destiny. Those 3 words, health, happiness, and destiny.com. And get this book so you'll be ready for the wedding feast, because this is the wedding feast, the earthquake and 7 seals. The 7 seals have a contextual link to topics that have been leavened out of Adventism. Okay, I'll give you a classic example right now. The 2nd seal, the red horse, great sword that takes peace from the earth, is the covenant. When God made a covenant with Israel, he said in Exodus 34, verse 10-11, behold, I make a covenant. It's a terrible thing I'm going to do with you. I'm going to drive out the Canaanite. Well, if he would do it for them, he will do it for us, and it will take peace from the earth. He'll drive the Muslims out, and the earthquake will scatter them. I didn't share this. When they celebrate that Allah has no son, the sun is going to roar. He's the Lion of Judah in Revelation 5:5. And if God won't do anything without revealing it in Amos 3:7, the next verse is, the lion has roared. That's Christ. The heavens and earth will shake. Why? Because Joel 3:16 says the Lord will roar from heaven, roar from Jerusalem. Sorry, he will roar from Jerusalem. The heavens and earth will shake. So there it is. And Ellen White says Jerusalem represents the church. Jerusalem is a representation of what the church will be if it refuses to walk in the light God has given. And that's 8 Testimonies, page 67. And then in page 247, she says, we're not walking in the light, meaning we're going to be like Jerusalem. So when you see that happen, the message is fear God, give glory to him, and get ready for judgment next spring, I think. Okay. So we should be watching on these feast days, times of appointment that God has given to us. Moed is the Hebrew word. These are my feasts. Will we keep our appointment? Appointed times, our appointment. So, and we could do it with the Lord's Supper and then watch and pray till midnight anyway. And if we're watching at midnight, when I believe Loma Linda will get it in judgment, just like Egypt did. We're like Egypt, by the way. Egypt enslaved Israel and threw babies in the river, threw Israel's babies in the river. America, the U.S., has enslaved most people in alcohol, tobacco, drugs, even medical care is a form of bondage. Yes, if you have to go back every few weeks and get a blood test and get a shot or get a prescription that could kill you, it happens that way. And I could tell you more about it, but I'm not going to go there right now. And so anyway, we're on the cusp of big stuff, and we need to get our Bibles open, and this will help you for the wedding feast. The topics in Bible times, weddings, like Genesis 29 verse 27, fulfill Leah's week. It's her wedding, okay? And 7 days of unleavened bread for Passover is the same idea as 7 seals for a wedding feast, in a sense. In Nehemiah 9 verse 38, when they were proactive and they decided to make a covenant, they said they signed and sealed to it. We want to be sealed, 7 seals, okay? And so that's it in a nutshell. Visit the website, Health, Happiness, and Destiny, and get the book. You can get it for, I think, $4.95 or $5.95. It's less than what you'd pay for a meal eating out, but this is 7 meals of a spiritual nature that will build your mind and help you to be ready, because the wedding promise in Luke 12:36 and 7 is, "Blessed is that servant whom his Lord finds watching when he comes. He will gird himself, make him sit down to eat, and serve him." That's what Christ did at the Last Supper. "And for the servant that is so doing, when he comes to knock," I'm saying earthquake is the knock, "he will make him ruler over all that he has." Since my name is Ruling, I wanted to understand that, but it's not about me, it's about 144,000. The 144,000 are virgins in Revelation 14:4. They have to be the wise virgins to get in the wedding, and we can all be there. Please join me, follow me. Paul says, "Follow me as I follow Christ." We should all be able to say that, and I believe I'm seeing more than most people in the church, even pastors, because they think that the church is not in apostasy when she said it was that way 120 plus years ago. So that's it. Thank you very much, and I'm going to shut this off, but call me. By the way, I'll put the email in the message below. Bye.